All right, welcome to another edition of Frank and Candid. I am Tony Nass. Glad to have you on board this Monday morning, start of a new week and a different week for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Lockdown is over, with the exception of the nighttime curfew from 9 o'clock. So we're all back to work. And hope we had a lot of rest and hope we accomplished a lot in the lockdown. Hope we used it wisely. And hopefully we have put a dent in this thing that we're fighting. So we will see from here forward how it works. As we continue, we will continue to observe the protocols and see how we can continue to fight this fight. Let's go to the news. A Haitian doctor who has been a fixture in Florida for more than 2 decades has been arrested in Haiti under suspicion that he was one of the leaders behind the middle-of-the-night assassination of President Jovenel Moïse last week. Sources familiar with the investigation told a newspaper there in Miami. Christian Emmanuel Sanons. His name has been cited by several of the people who are in custody in the case. The newspaper learned, leading the national police to arrest him as part of the ongoing investigation into the leadership of the group of 26 Colombians and 2 Haitian Americans suspected of carrying out the assassination. Police have also put several presidential security guards under house arrest. Sanon's arrest makes him the 3rd person of Haitian descent who has been arrested in the killing. 2 others from South Florida are also in custody after turning themselves in hours after the killing. The 2 Haitian Americans, who are among 19 individuals in police custody, told Haitian officials during questioning that their mission was not to kill the president, but to serve a 2019 arrest warrant against him that had been issued by the Haitian investigative judge, and to take him to the presidential palace. There, they would install Sanon as president. That's according to a source who spoke with the 2 men and told the newspaper. That continues, that investigation continues, and I guess there will be more to unearth in that whole saga. Cuba erupted in its largest scale demonstration in decades on Sunday as thousands of people chanting freedom and yes we can to the streets from Havana to Santiago de Cuba in a major new challenge to the government struggling to cope with increasingly severe blackouts, food shortages, and a spiking coronavirus outbreak. The protests from Havana to the island nation's eastern cities spoke to the power of social media. They apparently started in the city of San Antonio de los Baños and spread rapidly as demonstrators shared their protest on Facebook Live. The demonstrations were so large that President Miguel Diaz-Canel, who succeeded Raúl Castro this year as first secretary of the Communist Party, called on Cuba's revolutionary citizens to also take to the streets. So we will also continue to follow that story. Okay, that's it as far as what's in the news at the moment. Today we are back out from our 14-day lockdown period, 24-hour lockdown period, and you can tell from the streets that people were just raring to go, just wanted to get out. Whatever your thoughts are about those lockdowns aside, point is we are back out, and streets are not as quiet as they used to be anymore. So we will see what happens from here. We are in a curfew from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So that is the relaxation, and that will be for the next 14 days, and after that we'll see if we move a little further into relaxation. But for now, we're back out, and there are no lines at the supermarkets and so on, so that's good. Looking good. All right, what I want to talk about today, apart from that, is this whole idea of reparations, where CARICOM itself has been on the forefront with respect to this whole idea of reparations. Reparations, making of amends for a wrong one has done, by paying money or otherwise to helping those who have been wronged. The issue of reparation has become very controversial, with different views being presented from diverse perspectives. The terms slavery and reparation always stir emotions. Immediately, there is the thought of injustice and exploitation. You just have to broach the topic of reparation today, and you'll get a barrage of questions coming at you. Some questions like, well, if there's reparations, who will be paid? How much will they be paid? Who will pay? So there are indeed all these questions, and they're fair questions. Like any other issue, there are those who has a case to make and argue passionately against reparations. However, it is my belief that the arguments for reparation is a strong one, especially when you examine the historical facts and when you consider how other groups who were also subjected to some form of injustice, they themselves have received some sort of recompense. Even though a lot of these groups, or none of these groups, had to suffer those injustices for 400 years. But when I say that, I have to quickly add here that injustice is injustice, whether for 4 minutes or 400 years. Let me say that from the outset. Whether it is the African descendants in the United States or in the Caribbean or wherever, it is to me quite clear that there are some continuing effects coming out of that. There are the continuing socio-economic problems that have their roots in slavery and the colonial era. The present day underdevelopment of the Caribbean is a direct and lasting legacy of the slave trade. And descendants of enslaved Africans should be compensated in some way for present day injustices rather than historical sufferings. It's a legal case, and the legal case no doubt will be one that is difficult to establish. The moral case, however, is not so easy to dismiss, especially when the nations of the former colonizers even today, owe their present prosperity to and are still benefiting from the wealth that they accumulated from the slave trade and slavery. Although whites in the Caribbean represents a minority group, you will notice that they own most of the wealth. Now, CARICOM has gotten involved, and CARICOM is involved in making the case for reparations. And they have set up the Caribbean Reparations Commission. The Caribbean Reparations Commission is a regional body created to establish the moral, the ethical, and the legal case for the payment of reparations by the governments of all former colonial powers and the relevant institutions of those countries, and pay to the nations and people of the Caribbean community for the crimes against humanity of native genocide, the transatlantic slave trade, and a racialized system of chattel slavery. That is, slavery where human beings were considered to be property and bought and sold as such. Remember, let's take you back. Britain did compensate some 46,000 slave owners with £20 million sterling. And why did they compensate them? This said they were compensating them for the loss of their property upon the abolition of this dreaded institution. But while they compensated the slave owners for the loss of their property, they have not paid reparations to those black people who were the slaves. The CARICOM nations identified 6 areas of the Caribbean condition that they believe are the direct result of European crimes and should be the focus of reparations. Let me highlight them for you. 1, public health, including chronic diseases. Education and illiteracy. Cultural institutions that promote the imperial history of the beneficiaries of slavery. Cultural deprivation and devaluation of black identity. Psychological trauma. And finally, scientific and technological backwardness. Caribbean governments have not given up in their unrelenting efforts to pressure Europe into paying reparations for this brutal transatlantic trade. Back in 2017, CARICOM did send letters or demand payment letters to France, to Britain, to the Netherlands, to Portugal, to Spain, Norway, and Sweden. Because all of these countries colonized Caribbean islands and enslaved people of color. The CARICOM Reparations Committee, to this day, continue to push for compensation. And not only compensation, they're also looking for an apology, public apology from leaders of these countries. To date, Britain seems to be the most responsive. Not to say that they've done a lot, but they actually respond. And so far, the British government has responded by increasing some investments in the region, but not necessarily that they're addressing directly the issue of reparations. Some time ago, the British had poured some 300 million pounds into what is called the United Kingdom Caribbean Infrastructure Partnership. The areas being targeted with this money include building new roads, bridges, and ports, and with hopes of stimulating trade. About 60 million would go to making hospitals and other health facilities more resistant to hurricanes and tropical storms. Another 60 million to new programs to boost economic growth. But I must say at this point that a lot of that is self-serving, because they want to foster trade as well, so they will benefit. So it's not all about reparation per se. Furthermore, the British government, remember, increased some funding to support the fight against serious crime in Jamaica. Again, ulterior motives, because a lot of the funds when it comes to Jamaica was earmarked for building a sizable prison in Jamaica, because there were some 600 or more Jamaican nationals in jail in Britain, which they wanted to deport at the time. So a lot of money was spent on building a jail in Jamaica. So, ulterior motive. So, the whole idea of reparation still a struggle, and the good news from our perspective is that CARICOM is in the fight, and they're collectively in the fight. And just like the African Americans, right, in the U.S., their plight in trying to obtain reparations from the United States has gone unanswered, for the most part, and for many years. And more than likely, so will the call from the Caribbean governments to the European nations. Some say Caribbean governments might as well take what they can get while they can get it, and just let bygones be bygones. That's what some people would say. What say you? All right, that's my take. 465-2555 and 718-577-2916 are the phone numbers here. We will now take your calls and get your thoughts, opinions, comments. Let's go straight to the phones. Good morning. Welcome to Frank and Candid.
If you were to ask, good morning.
Good morning.
If you were to ask me what say I,
Yes.
I say no. It should be the ball is in our court, and it's not the enslavers to set the stage. Like you pointed out, 6 probably of the 10-point plan. That is it. But also, there was a case that was established by those who were claim loss of property, whether and what Sir Hilary Beckers estimated as a ship that left Africa, I think was off the coast of Angola. Mm-hmm. It was called, I think, was the Zang. And because of loss of whatever the timing they had was to lighten the load. As a result, human cargo was thrown overboard. Mm-hmm. Well, the ship made it, and the owners went to court and got reimbursed,
right,
for property loss.
Loss of property, right?
That was a case was established for whatever loss of property went on to be. Mm-hmm. But in our little space here, you did mention about 6 areas that were to be covered in health and, psychological trauma and the like. But in our space also we have identified companies that are still functional today. Companies that have morphed into other new companies by name, like the Lloyds of London, that had sugar estates here in St. Kitts and one on Mount Strat for sure. So there are companies that are under the guise, and that's why there's a lot of pushback in the Caribbean, because there are a lot of companies in our domain that will have to pay reparation.
Don't forget the
If you want
church.
to ask me what say I say no. We, the ball is in our court. It's for us to establish our bounds and what we want. Thanks for listening.
Okay. Let's not forget the church also had a role to play in that slave trade as well. Let's go back to the phones. Good morning. Welcome to Fact and Candid. Good morning, caller. Your life. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Good morning.
Greetings in the name of our great African ancestors, especially the most honorable Marcus Messiah, Gavian, Queen, and Zinga. Blessed them, my beloved African, but over you, the family.
You're all doing well. How about you?
Good, man, and the clan is good. Now, my brother, good topic, but let me say first, beloved, let me say it's good to see the Federation open up again to some extent, you know, and let me say, long live the Cuban Revolution. No counter-revolutionary cannot stop it. So all of them who, you know what I mean, bring up the thing and outside influence, and, you know, but that's for another time. Cuba is here to stay forever. No one cannot move revolution and revolution philosophy. No. Love it, but this thing in any company, companies in the Federation who demand that people take vaccination. If you want to take it, you take it. If you don't want to, but any company, any business that demand that the people be vaccinated, otherwise they fire them, people of St. Kitts Nevis should boycott that company, our companies. Now let me get to the real thing, beloved. Reparations for our people. But there is not enough money on this planet to pay African people for the greatest Holocaust in the history of civilization. But some money must be taken, beloved, must be paid out, beloved. And, you know, anybody could get and say they apologize. You know, I'm not now apology mean anything, because anybody could say anything, but within their minds, as some people say hard, but it's mine for me, right? They don't mean it. So let me see the real thing, the money, but not enough money, beloved. But what we want to see as African people, from the African continent into the African diaspora, infrastructure, beloved, debt forgiveness. And we really owe them nothing, you know. They owe them, they owe us everything. Caucasian owes everything. We ain't owe them anything. But, you know, for somatics and things, debt for forgiveness, beloved brother. Modern schools, hospitals, airports, you know, and modern technologies, beloved people, headed by our people, not outside forces, modern agriculture, beloved brother, and £1 million. They will deal with that murderous country called Europe. No, not Europe. Let me deal with the British. Right? £1 million or euros must be given to every African. Let me deal with St. Kitts Nevis. Others in the Caribbean and the African continent will decide from that, beloved brother. You know, but that must be done. And CARICOM, you see, I have a lot of problems with these misleaders in CARICOM, and I wanted two real leaders like Sister Mia Matley. You know, maybe one out of two, but I will stand with Sister Matley for now. But they come, they see all kind of things in the Caribbean, all kind of things when they reach and the world stage. But they don't go to United Front, and all of them don't speak about reparation when they up in September at the UN General Assembly. They don't say anything. You might just find one or two of them, beloved. I never hear St. Kitts Nevis speak about reparation. I stand corrected. I know Antigua did. I think former Prime Minister, the Honorable Baldwin Spencer, did that, and about 2 or 3 occasions. I think that Clown Gaston did it once or twice that I can recall. Stand corrected and that. See, you got to go as a united front. And the churches, especially the Catholic Church, Lights of England, Bank of England, all of them who profited from the enslavement of African people, all of them must pay. Not just the state, but all of those companies. Barclays Bank, if they're still around, and so brother, we must get things right, and we must get the United Front. But when that money is distributed, beloved brother, we must have other, not the administration, the present administration. When that time comes, it must be all like a community of people, man, from all aspects in our society. That must be done. Because I don't want to see these politicians, the crooked ones, them, do all kind of things and this, and you look, money just disappear and nobody get, very few of us get paid, beloved. So that's my stand for now. We continue to listen. Pan-Africanism our purpose. One love, my beloved brother.
All right, thank you. All right, just to say that CARICOM has spoken out.
Good morning.
St. Kitts and Nevis is a part of CARICOM. Good morning, welcome.
Yeah, good morning. The brother that was just on the phone, he told us Africa. He needs to learn the truth about what happened in Africa. Years before we born, the white man went to Africa, and the tribal chief told the villagers as slaves. So he needs to get the facts right and stop with this racism stupidness. Learn his history. And if he still loves Africa, where they're killing black people and kidnapping little babies and children, let him go Africa. I've been in St. Kitts 41 years, and I tell you, I love St. Kitts with my heart and soul. Nothing could make me leave this island. Nothing at all. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Everybody in St. Kitts, I love you, and have a good day.
All right. Thank you. I love St. Kitts too. All right. As I was saying, CARICOM collectively has spoken out with respect to reparations, and St. Kitts Nevis is a part of CARICOM. So in that sense, they are joining in that fight as well. All right. The question of reparations is, as I said, it's one that invokes a lot of passion on several sides. But if you take the moral argument, there's no doubt that when you look at slavery and what has happened, there's no way to dismiss the moral argument. Legal argument will go through a lot of twists and turns and end up in all kinds of courts and decisions here and there. But there is no way of dismissing the moral argument when it comes to slavery and reparations. That's my position. So, I don't know. May not be yours, but let's go back to the phones. Good morning. Welcome.
Good day, Mr. Nias.
Hey, good day.
Nice to be free again, eh?
Hey, yes, it is.
Reparations. That's an interesting topic. My view, we in the Caribbean, we have gotten three things from Africa. One is slavery, two is hurricanes, and three is Sahara dust. The Englishman, the white man alone, is not responsible, in my view, for reparations, and I'll give you my thing. They're not solely responsible, because these black people, our ancestors, weren't stolen. They were sold. So somebody, our bodies in Africa, profited as well. So Africa too should make a contribution to any reparations that are being paid. Why I say so? Because I was in college in England some years ago in my youth, which was many years ago, and I was in college with a lot of Africans. In fact, one of them was even my roommate. And their whole thing was that the slave thing, they had to get rid of the dregs of society, who they refer to as our ancestors. They were dragging down the country. So they lumped us on boats, got a few pennies or whatever, shillings or whatever them, and sent them off to earn hard blows, whip and so, and Englishman gets some money out of them. When time came now for the slavery to end and for Africans to be repatriated home, those who want to go back home, a lot of the countries where they came from didn't want them back. They didn't want back our ancestors. They had to get up and to put them in a place called Sierra Leone, and the capital of that is now called Freetown, based on the free slaves who came back. To confirm what I was saying about the Africans getting rid of us, because no Englishman going in no bush to pull out, no Spanish, no French, no Dutch, nobody going in any bush to pull out any black man from Africa. I have confirmed more than once, and up to a few weeks ago I spoke to Matt Brantley about his visit to Senegal, and he was confirming again that when there, they carried him to a site, an island, an off-island, which housed a huge walled structure, a jail, with some huge oaken gates, and the gates were referred to as the gates of no return. In there is where Senegal held their slaves for the Englishman to come to that island, pick them up, and take them out to places like Basti and Charlestown and wherever else in the Caribbean. The Englishman did not touch the African mainland in Senegal. They paid their money, they took up X number of things, the ships took up X number of slaves, went with them, landed them all over the place, sold them to the slave owners in whatever countries they think, and returned back to England and back the triangular trail, back to England, down to Africa to pick up more. The Africans were just as implicit in the slave trade as the British and the French, the Dutch and everybody were, and that can be proven over and over and over again. Yes, the Europeans might have gotten more out of it in the long run, because the slaves might have been pretty cheap, but Africa was also involved in the slave trade and made money, millions upon millions and millions of whatever currency they had, helped to build their country, that slave trade. We are quite happy out here, and those who want to go back to Africa, they're quite free to do so. A lot of us talk, but none of us go in. Thank you.
All right. Interesting perspective there, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But we have some calls, so we will continue taking the calls before I go to that. Let's go to the phone. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
I beg to differ, yes. And while here, there were other persons that sold us, Africans sold Africans, yes. That was manipulated from a higher echelon by what we call the Inquisitions and all those decrees. The Inquisition would have started on the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. Yes, it all started with deportation of what you will call today the Moors and other Jewish people and the like. But I beg to differ. We want no jugs. We want no jugs of the societies of Africa. We were the best of the best of the best. What can attest to that? What is built in the West. Had it wasn't for our ingenuity, the West would have never been built the way the West has been built as a model. So we were the best of the best of the best. It came out in us. That is why all our patent was manipulated and sold off for pennies. All our ingenuity came out in us out here. It was forced to come out in us out here. That is why we are the envy of the world. I don't want to keep the system alive. Big crypto, encryption into computers and all that. It is us, it is us, it is us. We were never no junk. We were the finest. So I beg to differ with that part there, even though I agree, yes, it was Africans, it was Africans. Battering and selling and what we call ransom slaves, it went on for quite a while, and it was manipulated by religious ideologies also. Islam, Christianity, and all of those things mold a lot of what you would call the animist people, the lowest, or the pagans, or you name it. They would have been the one. And then the pushback from different kingdoms. Eh? The British would have come, and they send the runners to tell you, we want 20 persons, we want 40 persons. I'm not going to sell my brother, so I'm going to go over there and sell someone who is not a kin of mine. This is how it happened. But it was manipulated from the highest echelon in religious settings, like the Inquisition. Get your history right. Yes, we agree, black persons sell black persons, but Joseph was sold by his brothers too. Let us have a conversation on a religious level. We talk about Joseph and Joseph's accomplishment in Egypt. But this is what we accomplish out here. We are the Josephs of these days. We accomplish a lot for the West. Like Joseph did then, we are the Josephs of these days, because we did for the West. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to the phones. Good morning.
Yes, Brother Nias, Brother Nabo here again. We call her before my beloved brother Africa. But it is known that Africans, played a minuscule part in the enslavement of African people on the continent. And you're going to have traitors in every ways. I don't hear that individual talk about the Jews, the Caucasian Jews in Europe who thing with Hitler and the Nazis. I don't hear that in other races. But let me deal with the African race because we have the African persuasion. And this nonsense about the dregs and all kind of utter foolishness must stop his disinformation and misinformation. He's supposed to be a quote-unquote educated person from what I was told. He went to university. I think somewhere in England or something like that. But you see, brother, this is our main problem. The pseudo-intellectuals among us, them is the greatest problem. Because they want to be accepted by Caucasian and want to be more Caucasian than the Caucasian. And like the great Pan-Africanist and great master teacher, Dr. John Henry Clark said, the want to be is more dangerous than the person trying to be like. So, these things don't faze me. And let me tell individual, I remember about when I was in the 1990s, he had some nanas. I don't know if a nana is someone who thing called so-called chief. Chief is a European title, so I don't use that. I had a couple of nanas from Ghana, to be exact, was right here. And they went to Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know if they went to other places. And they asked for forgiveness, beloved brother, in what their direct ancestors and the African continent did, their minuscule participation in the enslavement of their own people. They asked for forgiveness. That was right here in New York. There was on WLIB, beloved. I don't know if you was in New York that time. So this nonsense and thing, with people who look with black faces, all kind of excuses to get away from the real point, the real foundation for enslavement. But Pan-Africanists like me and others, many others, not gonna be distracted by that nonsense. We're gonna stay strong, and reparation, we demand reparation, and we must get reparation in my lifetime. I can assure all of them in that. So who want to talk about racism and all kind of that? But I don't have time for nonsense with them, brother. I gonna in Pan-Africanism today, Pan-Africanism yesterday, Pan-Africanism today, Pan-Africanism forever. But I continue to listen because probably someone else wants to speak. I don't have no monopoly on anything. So let me hear the Pan-Africanist brothers and sisters. Pan-Africanism our purse, my beloved brother.
All right. Back to the phones. Good morning. Welcome.
Hello?
Hello.
You have me holding on the line so long. I hope the credit doesn't run out.
Hope not.
Okay, I've been in St. Kitts for 41 years. I married a man from here, from St. Kitts. But what I noticed over the years, St. Kitts people for grudges. They don't pull together. The Chinese people now have supermarkets. If you only had 2 or 3, 4 people pull together and stop backstabbing, go to development bank or whatever bank, you could have had the supermarkets here. The Chinese wouldn't be running the place. St. Kitts people and black people need to pull together and stop grudging each other and be jealous of what they have. Pull together and you will get rich in the nation. Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you and have a good day.
All right, you too. Back to the phones. Good morning. Welcome to Frank and Candid.
Good morning, Mr. Nice.
Good morning, sir.
There are 2 aspects of this reparation issue that is often overlooked, or if not overlooked, we tend to look at them in terms of, well, down the road for that. Okay, so we kick the can down the road. The first one is, who are we asking to enforce whatever reparations we are asking for? Are we appealing just to the good conscience of the Europeans, like their moral responsibility, so to speak? Or are we looking for legal arbitration, legal binding arbitration, in which case, what is the legal entity we're going to be appealing to? Certainly not the one that have the final say right now, that is the Privy Council. I mean, can we really expect to get justice from the institutions of our past oppressions? I don't think so. Or do we want an independent international court of justice, or the UN? If we go there, it's probably would die a natural death, as so many countries will then demand compensation for all kinds of atrocities that occurred in world history. All right, so we should really look. We should really target who exactly we should be appealing to. The second thing is, let's suppose we get an agreement in principle on reparations from the past colonizers. Let's suppose they decide they're going to pay something. Are we prepared to suggest the form it will take? So I think of the Indians in North America. They were given some kind of compensation for the loss of the land, reservations, and of all kind of native programs, etc. Mm-hmm. But what has it done for the Indian nation or heritage as a whole? They don't seem to have been empowered to me at all, right? They remain essentially second-class citizens in the countries, both Canada and the United States.
Well, they do have some privileges in terms of they have their own nations and so on, and no taxation and things like that on their reservations, etc.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. You push them in an area there. That's almost like apartheid. You okay. You have your own taxes. You run yourself. Mm-hmm. But you don't have equivalent access to the resources of the country as a whole, and you certainly don't have political clout. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's why I said they have not been empowered, and that is why I maintain that even before we talk of reparations, or simultaneously with us advocating for reparations, we should concentrate on making sure that we have the systems that the ordinary man can benefit from any reparations that are given. Okay? We should not be distracted from building our countries by this talk of reparations, for it probably will remain just that for a long time. Talk. Okay? So that it's just those two things that I wanted to point out. I mean, the reparations issue right now. Right now, I think it's in the hands of technical people. I don't know if they think that they can galvanize the whole of the Caribbean behind that, if that's going to make any difference to the people that we want reparations from. I very much doubt it. Okay? So let them deal with the reparations issue. We should concentrate on building our respective countries. That's my view.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Back to the phones. Good morning. Welcome.
Yeah, Mr. Nayas,
Yes.
I'm going to be short and sweet.
Okay.
The Africans, the people who really come from Africa and got passport, the nationality would say there is Africans. But we Africans, the Africans that we got here, saying that their nationality is petition.
Okay.
That's it, I done.
Okay. All right. We're going back to the phones. Good morning.
Mr. Nayat,
Yes.
two callers about was mentioned about the island that Mr. Blantley spoke about off the Senegal coast. That island is called the Gowi Island. Gowi Island. I thought I initially wanted to call and talk about something. Have you ever heard the term Anglo-Saxon? Anglo-Saxon. This is in response to an elder caller from last Friday. The Anglo-Saxon. I shall save it for some other time in the future.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. We got a call? Or no? Okay, let's take it. Good morning. Welcome. Good morning.
Hold on.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Niles.
Yes, good morning.
That man was always talking about Africa. Why he don't lift up Africa and bring it to St. Kitts? He all debating on Africa. The people who he's talking, most of them already done dead, they buried. The young generation, old generation, don't even know them. What he rubbing up his whole soul and heart about Africa? We are not in Africa. We are criticism like somebody just said, how much a year we know about Africa? What grandmother and this come from Africa? I don't know where they come from, how we know in there. How about good, Mr. Nayos?
All right. Well, there's such a thing as history, and history is important. And if our history takes us back to Africa, then at least we should know something about it. As I said, we had an interesting perspective with respect to the fact that our own people sold us into slavery, and the white man didn't actually go into the bush to get us. Well, that doesn't change, really, in my opinion, doesn't change the moral argument of enslaving a people. However you came, or however you acquired them. Because even in our regular law, well, let's say, if I stole something and sold it to you, actually you who bought stolen goods would pay a higher price in terms of penalty than the person who stole it, right? And even in our regular law, you buy stolen goods. That's just one way of looking at it. But I take the point that the blame has enough room to spread. That part of it I can understand. Yes, there were some people who, for whatever reason, whether economic or otherwise, engaged in this terrible situation where they kidnapped their own people out of their villages, as you say, in the bush. And they kidnapped their own people out of their villages and packaged them for sale to the white man who pulled up on a boat. No. They're all wrong. I mean, all have some comparability with respect to that. So, but it doesn't take away from the people who took those people, kidnapped people, took them across the Atlantic, or, you know, and worked them as slaves. So I don't know if that excuses, if it excuses the person who enslaved the Africans in the Caribbean or in North America or wherever. The fact that the person who went out and the person who they paid to capture their product or whatever they called them at the time, their property, which they then, you know, they bought as their property. I don't know whether or not it excused them. As one caller spoke about the fact that even in the travel here, when things got rough, aboard ship in the waters of the Atlantic, they needed to lose some of their cargo. And without thinking of anything anything other than cargo, they just need to unload some of the cargo so that the ship will be saved. And the cargo were people, living people, that they just throw over to the sharks, you know, whatever. I mean, they just had to lighten their load. You throw them overboard. I mean, which one of us will think of that in moral terms today and say that's okay? These were people we were dealing with. As the Christians would say, these were God's children. But here we had ships that were owned and manned by the church as well. I don't want to leave them out. Were actually throwing people overboard because they had to lighten their load. So the fact that they didn't want to get their hands dirty inside of the continent, inside of the bushes, as they say, and they paid some individual, some immoral individual, actually, black, whether he was black or white, to go in there and capture them and bring them to the ship for me, changes nothing, in my opinion. You know, still an immoral and a terrible act to even pay people to do that. But anyway, let's go back to the phones. Say good morning. Welcome to Frank and Candid.
Yeah, and while you're explaining, you may be willing to find a simple explanation as to why these countries who sold these black people never wanted them back when they were freed. Thank you.
That's also an issue. I don't know why they wouldn't want them back. You see, my take is that wrong is wrong here and wrong is wrong there, regardless to who perpetuated that. And so why they didn't want them back, I don't know. I don't know about that. That doesn't make that their reasoning itself, they didn't want them back, to be any better or justify as much. If we were to just take a set of people in this country and call them the dregs of our society, and so we can do whatever we want with them, I don't think much of us would accept that as being moral, based on our teachings and our upbringing. So anyway, just my take. I mean, on the responsibility is enough of it to go around. All of them were wrong, whether they were black people capturing black people or white people enslaving black people, all wrong. Back to the phones. Good morning. Welcome. Quickly.
Yeah, good morning, man. How are you?
Yes, I'm good.
Yeah, man, no matter how you twist and turn it, the atrocities that was done to us as black people during slavery You know, we just got to get compensated for it, man. Reparations all the way. Yeah, like that caller that said he's going to be short and sweet. I'm going to be short and sweet as well. Reparations all the way. No excuses. Thanks, man.
All right. Okay. We can take one more. Let's take this one. Good morning. Welcome.
Not to justify why our brothers would not take us back, but there were certain things that was involved. Before and after, there were kingdoms of ethnicity, and after colonization, there were colonists who were loyal to, the Queen and, Queen our age and successors. It was a difference. But today, speaking of Freetown, Sierra Leone, it is one of those countries that not everyone is going to take a DNA test. Mm-hmm. But if you were to go there, Mr. Nias, and you would have taken a DNA test and was proven to be of one of those ethnicities in Freetown, Sierra Leone, you automatically become a citizen. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that is a milestone or why we should not be taken back to the continent. But Freetown is a model that is not everyone going to take a DNA. But if you were to go there and say, look, I am of such ethnicity, it is in Sierra Leone, you automatically become citizen.
Okay. All right. And I think that's going to do it for us this morning. And just a quick follow-up on that Cuban story. The Cuban president has hit out at the United States, alleging it played a considerable role in the first major protests on the island in years by encouraging dissent and causing shortages with its blockade. Speaking on Monday, President Miguel Diaz-Canel blasted what he described as the U.S. interference in fiery remarks, condemning protests which erupted on the island a day earlier, that Sunday. Appearing alongside his cabinet in a televised national address, he stated that the people of Cuba have the right to defend their system and uphold the achievements of the revolution. Responding to criticism over the country's current economic woes, which have been worsened by the pandemic, Canel said that Washington's continued sanction against Cuba were causing the shortages, including a lack of medicines and power outages. Washington has pursued, he said, a policy of economic suffocation to provoke social unrest in the country. And that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for your comments, your phone calls, suggestions, opinions. And we'll be back tomorrow, if it is to be, with much more right here on Frank and Candid. I am Tony Nias. Enjoy the rest of your day.
It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be one safe. Kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. 'Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following